So again, doing a graphic presentation of how they go ahead and develop their process, and give them some understanding of, okay, looking at, again, the development of those design inputs, if we're not getting that right, here's how it's going to impede production all the way down the line. And really help people break out of that silo mentality of, I just do design, or I just do the field work. Okay, so a final project, Snoqualmie Falls, doing construction materials testing and special inspection for a dam and hydro plant retrofit up in the Seattle area. And for this project, Kleinfelder was the project QA, so out there to do concrete breaks and inspections as the third-party quality assurance. They're working to a quality manual that they wrote for the project, specifically based on the ASQ R18 requirements to cover the laboratory testing and ASTM E329 to cover special inspection. When I talked with the regional manager, one of the things that he asked for in this audit was, can I go and look at the good practices? And he was primarily concerned with safety, because this is a project where I don't know if they had any fatalities on the project, but I think they might have had one or two fairly bad injuries. So it's a dangerous project, and he wanted to highlight and use the audit as a way to highlight, here's how Kleinfelder is actually using its health and safety practices to keep its people safe and promote just good health and safety. In my mind, that's fine. If somebody wants me to go and look at a project and as well see what's working well, I want to do that. We're going to spread that through the company as we can. It cannot always be just, here's what we're doing wrong. So I went out there, looked for both positives and negatives. Positives, management was highly involved in the project. The relationship between Kleinfelder and the owner of the contractor was very solid. They actually had very tight control over their test and inspection records and their equipment, so from a quality point, it looked really, really good. On the technical level, it looked really, really good. I only had one big issue, and that is that when they came to their construction nonconformances, they had written a quality manual. And I read the quality manual, and I looked at the process they were following, and there was absolutely no match between the two. And what they were basically doing was they were using a request for information process with the owner and the contractor to address things as they happened on site. They had the owner's engineer on site, so that anything that got decided on, the owner's engineer signed for it on our daily field reports to indicate that the owner had accepted it. So we talked about that. We felt that that was acceptable as a practice at hand. But the big issue I had with them was, you've got a quality manual that says one thing, and you're doing something else, and we're the third-party quality assurance. Now, everyone's happy and getting along with each other right now, but what's going to happen in the event that there's some kind of fallout? We need to revise that quality manual so that we can reflect the process that's being followed at hand, because in the event that someone's coming in litigation, that quality manual is going to be their roadmap for how things should have been done. And this has been something that I come across quite a bit, is that, well, but we get along so great with the owner, why would we need to change this? And it's helping people to understand everyone might be getting along great now, but our reputation and our survivability as a company, as well as potentially your survivability if you're an inspector, might well depend on having the right documents in place to show people how to actually do things. So, just again, making sure that people understand it. Whatever the process is that we're going to follow, make sure that you actually document the process you're going to follow. Don't have apples and oranges. So some common auditee responses that I've come across over my time. Come across the one of records being poorly organized, or I'm sure we've all had audits where you ask for something and it takes 2 to 3 days maybe for them to finally produce the record. And a typical auditee response I get is, well, it's everyone's job to file records, to which my rebuttal is, if it's everyone's responsibility, no one's going to do it. Pick somebody, make them responsible for it. And they give me a kickback. Usually I say, it took you 3 days to get me training records. Incomplete implementation of the quality program, well, again, the prime or management doesn't care, they're happy with our work.
How do they know they're happy?
That's a good point. It's all assumptions, and again, this leads us down to the we're happy until we have to start proving it to somebody, and then it's not going to be your relationship that's going to be held up to support it. It's what's written down on paper. Traceability of work to the measuring and test equipment used is non-existent. Well, the data's good, so why bother? Well, great. I think one thing I've run into is I've gone into a laboratory and I've said, well, how do you know which equipment is calibrated? Oh, well, all the equipment in our lab is calibrated. And I would wander around and I'd open up the calibration book, and there was a non-conformance that had been issued by the calibration agency saying one of their sieve shakers for doing particle size analysis of soil was out of spec. Some had been red tagged, but they were still using it. And so my question was, well, how do you know which sieve shaker you used on various samples? I got the blank stare. And it's a big one for me for laboratories, because under any type of laboratory quality program, there's always a requirement that if they have a nonconformance of some type in their testing, they're supposed to figure out how many potential samples have been impacted, so they can go back and notify clients, hi, your test results might be suspect. If you don't know which samples pass through which pieces of equipment, you can't do it. You may as well say, well, nothing in the lab is reliable. But the prime is happy. Quality manual is inadequate for the project. This gets back to the, well, we know they keep saying that it should be written to the standard they want us to write it to. But this other one seems to work fine, so why change it? This was that ASQ 291 issue. We've been fine so far. It's not an issue, but it really is an issue. And it's got to be made pointedly clear.
Do people really say those things to you?
Oh, yeah. It's not our fault.
So again, it's a big thing for me is helping them understand there's a risk to themselves, there's a risk to the company. It's really easy in the nuclear world when I can go in and do a nuclear audit, because all I have to say is, there are civil and criminal penalties if you don't abide by the quality manual. And they'll say, oh, but that's the company, right? No, you as a person can be held criminally responsible. That usually gets the attention. It's not so easy in the commercial world, but nobody wants to be on the receiving end of, well, your guys signed off on the concrete for the bridge that broke and collapsed onto an interstate. Granted, there's not yet been, to my satisfaction, enough movement in this country to really push responsibility for design and construction and having repercussions for when things fail, but I think that will come. And I do think it's important that, again, we help companies understand it is to their benefit to be on the front end of things. Nobody wants to be the people splashed across the front page responsible for falsifying test results or anything like that.
So do you encounter much fraud or misconduct within your industry?
I've not personally encountered I haven't encountered fraud. I read a lot of the 10 CFR 21 reports that come from the commercial nuclear center. And by and large, when they look at where does something happen that they end up issuing fines for, it's falsification of paperwork. It's not necessarily always falsification with the intent to say something passed that didn't. I'd say not. There seem to be quite a few instances where it's someone's covering themselves because they missed something, or they forgot to do something, and rather than cop to the human error, they're going to try and cover it up. And that happens. I mean, I see that all the time in just commercial. It's the classic. I had a project where I got some lab results back, and I was looking at them, and there was whiteout tape all up and down the thing on the lab data sheet, and then they'd written over it. And that's just a time bomb as far as I'm concerned. So again, I'm not saying it's someone set out to be, from a place of malfeasance. They're more often not, they're following human nature, which is, I made a mistake, or well, that 6 will turn into an 8 really easy because I messed up recording something. So that